fanatics, not reformers. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, the open borders mafia wants to demoralize you.
Public sentiment is everything. With it, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. Our goal right now is to continue to make the case to the American people who know that the behavior of ICE and other law enforcement agencies within the Department of Homeland Security is immoral and it's illegal. Public pressure can lead to decisive action in the Congress.
All right, the first 5 seconds of him is enough for me, but they want you to get hung up on a few polls that supposedly show a shift in public opinion on immigration enforcement. So we've had weeks of biased coverage and a few, tragic incidents. That was bound to affect the public psyche, but it won't and it should not stop President Trump. The law is the law, and it was a cornerstone of his campaign. In fact, enforcement operations, as I told you last night, continued today in Minnesota, which is infuriating the Antifa set and all their cohorts who are still on the ground there. This is from the Red Star Tribune today. That's my little nickname for the Minneapolis Red Star Tribune. Inside the Whipple building, it appeared to be business as usual. Several groups of immigration agents were seen entering with lunch or putting their masks back on to go back out at around 1 p.m. More were milling about inside. Workers inside the building said they were not aware of plans to reduce the number of agents working in the state, or if they were, and they were not talking about it. So, good. Look, if there's some reallocation of resources, that's totally fine. But Donald Trump will never, and I mean never, cower to the Antifa crowd and their protectors inside state government. And firing people in the Trump administration is not going to shut up any of these people either. So I'm not sure what Kristi Noem's future is and what it will be, but she's a patriot. And Stephen Miller is one of the brightest minds in the administration, someone who's been fighting the immigration battles for years. And by the way, a lot of them with me. Sidelining him would be an affront to MAGA and only embolden the left. They get that scalp, that's off to the races. Now, despite Walz's slight change in tone, remember his goal. The governor's goal is 0 ICE arrests.
Tom Homan's a professional, which is a lot more than Bovino and Kristi Noem. But look, I think the thing we said is we're very clear about this, that we need these folks out of Minnesota.
Yeah, he wants them out, period. He wants no immigration enforcement. Now, that's in line with recent history. Case in point, Ecuadorian illegal German Adriano Langari Inga. Now, this was another horrific DUI case where Mr. Inga is accused of crashing head-on into an SUV, going over the middle line, killing an innocent mom and injuring 2 others, including one, her sister, and the other, her daughter. But last May, when Hennepin County finally got around to arresting Mr. Inga, it ignored an ICE detainer that had been filed against him, releasing the suspect onto the streets. Now, when ICE objected, county prosecutors said, oh, well, we don't do immigration law. Now, you should know this. This is the go-to response that the open borders advocates spout to defend the indefensible.
The jails are not allowed to hold somebody for ICE if the jail would not otherwise be holding that person. That is asking the local jurisdiction to do immigration enforcement's job for them. And at that, the local jurisdiction, that is not the local jurisdiction's job.
Okay, that might work in some interviews. People don't know the law, but it's nonsense. Honoring an ICE detainer simply means cooperating with ICE, alerting the agency ahead of any release of a suspect in order to prevent that individual from fleeing the area. That also has the added benefit of keeping the community safe. So all makes sense. But sanctuary cities don't care. Resisting ICE is like a religion to these people, and it's worth to them risking American lives. And all these mild notes of cooperation notwithstanding, Democrats' default position is to side with illegals. That's why rapists and murderers were roaming free in Minnesota when ICE arrived. Sanctuary city policies plus open borders propaganda plus activist boots on the ground equals lawlessness. Mark Zito, the special agent in charge for HSI in Minnesota, said it very well. Every time local jurisdictions refuse to cooperate with ICE and every time activists use their ridiculous whistles and bullhorns to alert criminal aliens, they're helping violent offenders, including convicted sex predators, escape justice. We're talking monsters, such as Mahad Abdul Qadir Yusuf, a criminal illegal alien and convicted sex offender from Somalia. When ICE first arrived at the building to arrest him in December, the building manager and other neighbors obstructed them. Undeterred, though, ICE returned and carried out the arrest. And how do communists describe the act of taking criminals off the streets?
These ICE raids are cruel and inhumane, and that they do nothing to actually serve the interests of public safety, and that public safety is of paramount importance to us.
He's a communist, not a socialist, by the way. And by the way, that's another lie. He cares about public safety. It's of paramount importance to us. Really? How about the guests at a Hilton hotel last night in New York who were terrorized when dozens of anti-ICE thugs took over the lobby? Yeah, they were eventually arrested, but they obviously thought that Mamdani had their backs. And by the way, think about it in this way. What would they have done if they had actually cornered an ICE agent in that lobby? And imagine if some right-wing contingent decided to take over a hotel where an LGBTQ group was staying, demanding an end to, I don't know, nudity at gay parades. We would never hear the end of this. There would have already been demands for hate crimes prosecutions. So the attacks on public accommodations, though, that first started in Minnesota, including this week in Maple Grove.
Violent protests overnight at a hotel that demonstrators said ICE agents were staying at. They tried to smash through the glass doors to get into the hotel. Police tried to use vending machines to block them.
Vending machines! But the feds are finally filing real charges here, and at least one rioter in one of the hotel sieges had a long, violent rap sheet that included beating a pregnant woman. So, look, these are the types of people, violent agitators, dangerous illegal aliens, that Democrats are defending. The cause that they think justifies shutting down the government, which, again, ends up doing what? Victimizing hardworking Americans. This is all orchestrated chaos.
Democrats will not vote to pass the budget that is before us if it includes Homeland Security. We will not do that. And our Republican colleagues in the Senate need to hear that, and they need to deal with it because they need us to pass this bill.
Now they're adopting these insane hardball tactics because pollsters tell them to, but they're making a big mistake. Because even in that Politico poll that they've been sending around all day, more voters prefer reforming ICE than the number who prefer eliminating the agency entirely, by 30% to 19%. By the way, all those numbers will shift when things calm down. And Republicans, though, they have to make this clear. Democrats claiming to favor common sense reforms for ICE, that's about as credible as when Biden's DHS Secretary Mayorkas claimed that the border is closed and secure. Look, that entire policy, by the way, was treasonous. I said it at the time. But at least Philly Soros DA, Larry Krasner, isn't even trying to fake it. He's not going ice fishing. He's going ice hunting.
This is a small bunch of wannabe Nazis. That's what they are. There will be accountability. If we have to hunt you down the way they hunted down Nazis for decades, we will find your identities. We will find you.
Imagine if conservatives ever use that language, hunt them down. They're still talking about Charlottesville. Now, we finally found death penalty cases, I guess, that Democrats want to prosecute. This from the Democrat running for Ohio AG.
Hi, this is Elliot Forehand, candidate for Ohio Attorney General. I want to tell you what I mean when I say that I am going to kill Donald Trump. I mean, I'm going to obtain a conviction rendered by a jury of his peers at a standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Nice Elmer Fudd shirt, by the way. What a sick fool. What twisted. But this is why things are so violent in these blue cities. Nazi comparisons and punishments, it's all being normalized.
I don't think that the comparisons with Nazi Germany are extreme, because that's what happened too. That's why ordinary German citizens began to accept the idea that certain members of their community would be singled out.
And there's no one more odious than this creep.
I want Stephen Miller to be the #1 in the Nuremberg trials when this is done. When this is done, I want Stephen Miller to be the first one who is tried and convicted and dangles.
Dangles. By the neck, I guess that's what he's talking about. Now, backing down in any way to these vile radicals is out of the question. Nothing short of ending all deportations and opening the border back up is going to shut them up. Instead, the president needs to keep focusing on the economy, securing a safer, better future for the American people, and enforcing the immigration laws as written. Consumed by their hatred of Trump, hatred of traditional America, Democrats will eventually rot from the inside out. Meanwhile, conservatives, led by President Trump, they're going to keep offering concrete policies that make your lives better, not bitter. And that's the angle.
Fox News alert. We were told Alex Preddy was just a peaceful nurse at the wrong place at the wrong time, delivering first aid to an injured protester. Well, we just obtained new video, days before the shooting, of a man who appears to be Preddy being not so peaceful. The Preddy family attorney and family members confirmed to the Minnesota Star-Tribune that the person in the video is Preddy. CNN reported that Preddy had a broken rib from an altercation with federal agents a week before his death. CNN claimed Preddy was just driving around minding his own business when he saw ICE agents chasing an immigrant family down the street. He went after them, jumped out of his car to help the family, then was tackled. Now, if this is the incident, it looks like CNN had bad sources. This video shows the individual with similar clothing and what looks and appears to be a handgun in the same place that it was at the time of the shooting, kicking the taillight out of a federal vehicle in the middle of an apprehension operation, and then violently resisting arrest. At one point, it even looks like he spits at the window of the ICE agent's vehicle. Homeland Security tells us the video's under investigation. This doesn't mean that his shooting a week later was justified. That's still under investigation. But it does paint a different picture of who Preddy was and the kind of violent attacks that ICE and Border Patrol have to deal with while they're arresting criminal aliens. The same thing happened with Renee Good. The media tells us she was just a random woman stuck in traffic after dropping her kid off at school. But later we learned she was a trained ICE Watch warrior out to cause trouble. Again, that doesn't mean she deserved to die. But the media is whipping people up with phony obituaries that don't tell the whole story. It's why Democrats running for office are flocking to Minneapolis for photo ops.
In a real sense, this is holy ground, consecrated by blood spilled here. I had to be here to stand in the very place where this tragedy unfurled, not only for Alex Preddy, but for Renee Good, for George Floyd.
Reverend Warnock just suggested Floyd and the two ICE watchers were like Jesus. It's a crime scene, not a cross, Reverend. Laken Riley was Warnock's constituent in Georgia. I never saw him broken up about her. But now he's flying to other states and crying. Tim Walz made an appearance at the memorial today. Watch.
We're just personally paying our respects, so my wife and I.
And do you believe that there will be a shift in tone here from the administration after your conversation with the president here on the streets?
I'm not so interested in a shift of tone. We just need them out of here, and we need accountability for what's happened.
Walz is speaking out of both sides of his mouth. On the phone with Trump, he says he's going to work with ICE as long as Bovino leaves and cooperate and hand over the bad guys. Then he hits the streets and tells the press ICE has got to go. Yesterday, the mob stormed into the Capitol building and hollered at his office. Why? Oh, because they said Tim's a traitor for doing business with Trump and Homan.
Tom Homan's a professional, which is a lot more than Bovino and Kristi Noem. Tom Homan landed last night, and he called me last night and asked if he could have a meeting, and he was there at 9 o'clock. So, look, I think that's progress, but they started this fire, so we're not giving anybody credit for putting it out.
Walz keeps changing his tune depending on who he's talking to because he's under investigation by the Department of Justice. One case for obstructing federal law enforcement, another for Somali fraud. Walz needed to broker an ICE peace deal with Trump. PBD was on primetime last night. Watch this.
I think he's also trying to make sure he's protected long term. I don't know what happens on these calls. I would only say I don't know what he's going to ask for. You know, wink, wink. Hey, if I work with you on this, can I get a pardon? I don't know what the guy's going to be asking the president. You know, these guys have a lot of audacity.
Look at Walz today, sending out fundraising messages, asking for money so he can hire lawyers. The email says, if you're with me, please rush a donation. Walz is going to have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars defending himself in the Somali fraud case, and he's broke. Just in 2024, he disclosed he only has between $15,000 and $50,000 in cash and in savings. It's going to cost at least 50 G's for the retainer. These guys charge $1,000 to $2,000 an hour to fight federal charges. Hunter Biden spent between $5 and $10 million on lawyers, or his sugar daddy did. Does Walz have a sugar daddy? I don't think so. And Walz can't take a line of credit out on his house because he doesn't own one. In federal investigations like this, prosecutors are going to get targets to flip and name big names. Omar, Keith Ellison, Walz, he's the biggest. We already know he blew off whistleblowers, and his staff was caught doctoring documents in a cover-up, while millions of dollars are flying out of the Minneapolis airport. Maybe some money winds up in the hands of terrorists. Walz could lose everything if he's found guilty. Of course, he's going to hand over the bad hombres. That's what any rational person would do in his position. But Trump prosecutors aren't done. Just last night, Homeland Security took down 16 ICE rioters. Pam Bondi flew into town, and she says she's about to bring a boatload of cases. These aren't your run-of-the-mill, salt-of-the-earth, peace and love protesters. These guys are hardcore. The women are gnarly. Even Somalis. This is Nasra Ahmed. We don't really know what she does or who she is, but Minnesota Democrats brought her out and let her tell her story last week. Listen.
To me, being Somali isn't just eating bananas with rice. It's a lot. It's like it's an interesting thing. It's like a cultural fusion. It's kind of like the bananas and rice. You know, people don't think, oh, you can eat bananas with rice, but that's what it's like to be Somali and American. It's like that combination of banana and rice.
We're not really sure what that means, but she was just arrested for assaulting federal cops. The whole thing's gotten kind of weird in Minneapolis. Last night, Omar held a town hall and someone stood up and squirted her with some liquid.
I don't know. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. He sprayed something on her.
Now, thank God that wasn't some sort of chemical agent. She could have been seriously hurt. CNN confirmed that it was just a little apple cider vinegar. Trump said it wouldn't surprise him if it was an inside job, but so far there's no evidence of that. But the FBI is investigating, and they'll find out exactly what happened. But if you want to talk about crazy, former Governor Jesse the Body Ventura, no relation, is calling on Minnesota to secede from the union.
How about since Trump dislikes Minnesota so bad and we're so out of control, let's join Canada. Instead of Canada becoming the 51st state of America and lose their health care, like they said, I'd like to see Minnesota, all of us become Canadians. It's obvious Donald Trump don't want us.
We love Minnesota. It's like one of the most beautiful states in the union. We just don't like it when they steal $8 billion and harbor foreign child molesters. Wisconsin's not doing that. Michigan's not doing that. What kind of state riots to keep killers and fraudsters on their streets? Other Democrats are jealous that Tampon's getting all of this resistance press, so now they're all using the N-word.
This is a small bunch of wannabe Nazis. That's what they are. In a country of 350 million, we outnumber them. If we have to hunt you down the way they hunted down Nazis for decades, We will find your identities. We will find you. We will achieve justice.
That was Uncle Larry Krasner, Philly DA. The streets love Uncle Larry because he keeps the jails empty. The only person they want in jail in this country is Trump and Miller.
Stephen Miller, like a man named Ben Detson, he was the one who created the internment camps for Japanese. Heinrich Himmler in the Nazi regime. This is what he is. People like Stephen Miller will go down in history as evil, had blood on his hands, and should be jailed at the very end of this.
You weren't allowed to call COVID the China virus, remember? But you can go out and call the White House Deputy Chief of Staff a Nazi, and the guy's Jewish. Now the Democrats are back to talking about lynchings. Listen. And the most unpopular mayor in the country with the most homicides in the nation just joined the party.
As it relates to Gregory Bavino, we've seen examples of other forms of tyranny that have led to concentration camps and the annihilation or the attempt annihilation of people groups. Okay.
The Holocaust Museum just spanked Walz for comparing illegals to Anne Frank. If you guys are watching, that was the mayor of Chicago. Little bit of a stretch. Democrats, they say, nope, they're not going far enough.
I don't think that the comparisons with Nazi Germany are extreme, because that's what happened too. That's why ordinary German citizens began to accept the idea that certain members of their community would be singled out. I mean, they have ICE tip lines, would be directly targeted in violation of the laws of the land, and it would be done by agents of the state.
ICE tip lines? Walz had COVID snitch lines. And can you believe illegals are the new Jews? Democrats are setting it up so when they take power, they're going to hold Nuremberg-style trials and try to hang and incarcerate Miller, Noem, Bavino, ICE agents just for deporting illegals. You don't believe me? Watch.
I think there should be something equivalent to the Nuremberg trials after this is all over.
I agree.
And to make it clear that once we're back in power, which we will be, this is going to happen. And the statute of limitations on murder is?
Zero.
Never.
Yeah, never.
However, it's the boring that moves the needle.
Democrats want to put you on trial for enforcing the law. Well, you know who might have to take a stand first? Barack Obama.
My job in the executive branch is supposed to be to carry out the laws that are passed. If we start broadening that, then essentially I would be ignoring the law in a way that I think would be very difficult to defend legally. So that's not an option.
But Barack's about as two-faced as tampon. Here's what the former president just uttered from an undisclosed location. Quote, "It's important to understand the broader implications of what this administration is doing and the threat it poses to the basic freedoms of every American." Barack Hussein deported 3 million illegals. Liberals never rioted, fought ICE, called him a Nazi. Obama gave Homan a medal for deporting so many migrants. But when Trump and Homan do it, they want to put him on trial. This is about power, and it's already slipping away. New York and California are already projected to lose 6 seats after the next census. With mass deportations, it'll reduce their numbers even further. They need to keep the population up to get more federal cash and more congressional seats. Democrats are calling for bills to prohibit ICE from going near the voting booths. The former governor of Washington says Senate Dems need to put into the appropriations bill a prohibition on ICE agents being near polling places. This is a must-have. Last chance to do this. Why do they care if ICE is near a polling station? I thought they didn't vote. In the Senate, Majority Leader John Thune, he wants to require photo ID and U.S. citizenship to vote. They're putting that in their next big funding bill next week. This is huge. National photo ID would stop Democrat shenanigans dead in their tracks. Once you realize illegal immigration is the pillar of the Democratic Party, voting, welfare, fraud, congressional districts. You realize why they're fighting to the death in the streets. If they don't like what Trump is doing, well, win an election. That's what Trump did.
Donald Trump is doing what the people elected him to do. Get rid of the illegal immigration.
Shocking images that we're seeing tonight. Now, despite calling for de-escalation, Governor Tim Walz ramping up his divisive attacks on the administration. Only moments ago on MSDNC, he dismissed the serious fraud allegations in his state. Take a look.
You mentioned this fraud investigation and the reason that they're here. Is there anything you think, when you look back, you could have done differently to prevent them from showing up and doing what they're doing here?
No, they were coming anyway. It was all make-believe that we'd been at it. Every state had this. And look, I do think there has to be accountability in this. No one in state government was implicated. This happens all over. People did this. We we got it caught. We put them in jail or whatever. But somebody needs to be accountable. And I said, you know what? You're right. I'm accountable for this. Let me this year get this all fixed, which we will have the strongest programs. We're already doing it.
Do you regret jumping out before such a consequential moment?
No.
And last night he was on fake news CNN and he told them the administration was infected with cruelty. So much for peace and getting along and cooperation. Now, these latest comments come on the heels of him saying that he would beat the Adam Schiff out of Vice President Vance in a debate if he could. He had a shot. He blew it. Take a look.
You got to look back about being on the debate stage with him and thinking, man, you really maybe gave this person a little too much of the benefit of the doubt. And we're a little bit, the assuming good faith was maybe a mistake with J.D. Vance.
Look, I'll own it. But, Tim, you've been around this long enough to know when you're on a ticket, you take your orders. Look, I have agency on that, meaning I could have in this, but I am a good team player. He's smooth. I never claimed to do that, but I'm pretty effective. But I'll take the criticism.
I'm for bipartisanship. Here's the problem. I'm for bipartisanship.
I would beat out of him now if I could, and I would call that out. I mean, that's just different. In verbally going at it, my argument is much better.
You might remember he was like sweaty, nervous wreck. Now, sadly, Mayor Smallfry isn't any better than Walz. Remember yesterday, after Fry met with Homan, he said that he made it clear that Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws. Nobody's asking for that. Just let them do their job. Now, this, of course, prompted a response from President Trump, who said Mayor Smallfry is, quote, playing with fire. But, of course, instead of using the opportunity to de-escalate like they claim they wanted to do, Fry responded on X, again, reiterating once again that Minneapolis will not enforce federal immigration laws. Fine. Don't whip people into a frenzy either. Let me be clear, very clear. What Walz and Mayor Fry are doing is beyond dangerous. Clearly, they want chaos over peace and cooperation because what? It suits them politically, appeases their radical base. Everything they said about wanting to de-escalate and find a solution with the Trump administration, nothing but rhetoric and a downright lie. And here's the worst part. By siding with the radical left, using radical, insightful rhetoric, and refusing to cooperate with federal law enforcement that are arresting dangerous illegal criminals, they themselves are endangering law enforcement, their lives, the lives of the very people they were elected to protect. So much for President Trump's efforts at being accommodating. Like everything else he does, it was met with fierce resistance from the radical left. They have embraced what is institutionalized lawlessness, sanctuary state and city. So the question is, well, now, what is President Trump going to do?
I know. It's good to see me, too. Good evening, everyone. So, Patriots head coach Mike Vrabel said he would cut off his own penis to win a Super Bowl. A Super Bowl. In a related story, J.B. Pritzker said he'd do the same for a burrito bowl. A burrito bowl. Delicious. A broken sewer pipe has left the Potomac River with 12,000 times the limit of E. coli, which causes intense diarrhea. While people have reported symptoms, life went on as usual for one man. Because he has it every day. Do I have to explain these jokes to everybody? A Kenyan activist broke a Guinness World Record by hugging a tree for 72 consecutive hours. I believe we have a picture. Which one's the tree?
Well, one of them has wood.
Yeah. Are you sure? California reportedly received millions of dollars to provide food and internet for 94,000 dead people. To be fair, they were alive when they called for service. Because, you know, you're always on hold. These jokes. Kanye West is now blaming his hatred of Jews on an undiagnosed brain injury. Why was it undiagnosed? Well, he didn't want to go see a Jewish doctor. A Georgia state rep filed a resolution to rename the Shawnee Mountains after President Trump. Oh, yeah.
Big Shawnee.
Sit down,
Mountain
everybody. To be fair, they also want to rename Death Valley after this guy. Yeah. They're waking up. That got them on their feet.
Now you're cooking with oil, kid.
Jimmy Kimmel cried on his show Monday while talking about Minneapolis. We don't know if he was sincere, but sources say before he took the stage, he'd been reading his ratings. And finally, a new report shows that men who get busted sleeping with prostitutes can attend a John school where completing the courses would mean no jail time. And one man has already graduated magna cum laude. Two jokes in one. All right, stop everything, America. Actor Ed Norton is demanding a national economic strike to get ICE out of Minnesota. Because are these not normal times?
These are not normal times, and it's like we have extrajudicial like assaults on Americans and humans going on a daily basis now. I think we should be talking about a national general economic strike until this is over and stopped.
Wow, look at that couch. Pretty brave, Ed. This coming from the guy whose biggest sacrifice this year was switching to diet caviar when feeding his puma. Then there's NYU professor Scott Galloway, who also doesn't mind if you feel the pain.
I'm talking about something quieter, far more unsettling to the system, and that is an economic strike. A short-term coordinated withdrawal from spending and maybe work. Wealthy households took their spending down 10%, and middle-class and lower-income households, which have a difficult time reducing their spend, took it down 5%. You would take GDP negative almost overnight.
Overnight. Not true. But who is he talking to? Certainly not the penniless orphans in my wallet factory, and not most Americans either. Sorry, Scott, most people aren't going to stop buying food for their kids because you said so. So you got an actor and an academic, two jerks, insulated from the consequences of their own commands. Both are worth millions and can afford a few days without a $20 smoothie from a cafe that's so hip the female barista has a penis. And their jobs aren't exactly necessary for society's function. You think America is going to miss another Ed Norton movie? Or a podcast from Galloway? That's like choosing between gonorrhea and syphilis. But with a national strike, everyone with real jobs and actual families suffer. But that's just a pesky detail for the happily insulated virtue signaler. They either don't see that their luxury ideas have grave consequences, or they don't care. Galloway lives in London. Easy for him to skip a meal there. The food sucks. But the big joke here is that they think they'll be taken seriously. That's the only good thing about their advice. No one takes it. Climate change, crime, trans, you listen to them, it's all the same. The issue is irrelevant because it's really about their egos. Whether it's open borders or ending bail, Dems don't see beyond the instant gratifying attention. Then they lose interest once the grim fallout follows. Because by the time the damage became evident, they've already moved on. You know, it reminds me of the Free Britney movement, which was all the rage among those who flit from one cause to the next. Oh, they got their wish. Britney was legally emancipated, but she was still mentally ill. And as her so-called champions moved on, she remained on Instagram, nearly naked, dancing with knives, or what Bill Clinton called a challenge. Her saviors were not saviors at all, just self-involved douchebags who enabled this self-destruction to then be handled by the family members that they had demonized. Sound familiar? Well, look at ICE, who's only in Minneapolis to clean up the mess that open borders caused. And now those who caused this label those guys the Nazis. And then they lie and say, nobody asked for this.
Nobody asked for this. Nobody put them up to it. They decided to launch this in order to show off what they could do. And now they are in full retreat. If you were one of millions of Americans who protested ICE out of Minneapolis, you should know tonight you are winning this thing.
You are winning. Winning what exactly? Who are you rooting for? More dead people? From her comfortably warm and secure studio, she applauds the chaos that caused 2 deaths, which was the point all along. Create chaos, leading to tragedy, which causes more chaos. And Rachel's numbers will go up. But why isn't she out there leading the charge, instead of home ripping phone books in half to maintain forearm strength? I guess it's just better for others to risk their lives doing stupid that drives her ratings up. She's a modern-day Eddie Haskell, egging her friend to eat the Tide Pods while she films it for her show. That's been her MO for years, as well as maintaining her eerie resemblance to Mannix. But we're different people now. We've seen this before. They take a short-term position that guarantees long-term harm, then they blame us when it goes bad. But we're done. They follow the same pathetic playbook so many times. Cleaning up their messes is now what we do best. So they can either grab a mop, and help, or they can off. Let's welcome tonight's guest. Be sure and congratulate him for getting his learner's permit. Host of the Guy Benson Show, Guy Benson. If laughter's the best medicine, find another comedian. Comedian Joe Mackey. She went from dating pop stars to hoarding gold bars. Host of the Kennedy Saves the World podcast, Kennedy. And he's currently the centerfold for Rand McNally, former NWA world champion and host of the Planet Iris podcast, You know, I was listening to those people talk, Guy, and I kept thinking, who are they talking to? Like, would you actually, if you have kids, and you do have kids, say, you know what, I'm not going to go buy them formula, or I'm not going to go buy breakfast food to make a point? How can somebody think that people are actually going to do this?
No, they're talking to each other to impress each other, to signal that they're good.
Yes.
That's what this is. And I did find it interesting that some of the anti-ICE agitation that these celebrities were engaged in with their very brave pins that said ICE out. This happened, and I love this, at the Sundance Film Festival in Tony Park City, where they're like, in this chalet, we believe that illegal immigrant child molesters are our neighbors. So, America, go do a strike. But not you, Mr. Waiter, because my champagne needs topping off, right? Like, it's so detached from reality. On Maddow, quickly.
Yeah.
When she said nobody asked for this, actually the American people asked for mass deportations. The president ran on it, and he won. Now, the chaos, none of us want, except for the people doing the chaos, who are encouraging the chaos. And so when she makes that assertion, she's actually, they always freak out about democracy. They are spitting in the face of democracy by denying what the last election largely was about.
But the underlying thing is that the only reason why she thinks they're winning is because it got louder after a death. So she is like, she is egging on. They need another death.
Well, and the winning thing is also weird. Like, this is not a game.
Yeah.
ICE has a job to do to enforce the laws that Congress passed and the president back then signed. They're on the books. And they are trying to get out felons who have no right to be here. And now some people are dead. And the administration is trying to negotiate with these Democrats. And she's like, we're winning. I think that's actually a pretty sick thing.
No, it is sick. And speaking of sick, how you doing there, Joe?
I'm okay, Greg. How are you?
when you hear somebody like one of your fellow peers in the entertainment industry, like Ed Norton, who you've worked with many times in motion pictures.
I call him Ed.
Ed, that's good, because that is his name. It'd be weird if you called him Fred.
That would be.
Yeah, but I got to ask you, would you be willing to sacrifice, part of your Playboy lifestyle if it meant changing a political issue?
That really wouldn't work for me because I go months at a time without spending money because so much of my lifestyle is funded by the women I seduced. But I'll say hats off. Stop laughing. Hats off to Ed. Hats off to Ed Norton because although I don't agree with his views necessarily, this is a peaceful protest. So they cracked the code. Finally, a peaceful protest. They're not invading a church and harassing children there or hitting people with bike locks. So more power to him. You're allowed to do that in this country. But to your point, like, he's a millionaire actor that has security in a gated mansion. Why would I listen to that actor's opinion on anything when his lifestyle is so far removed from a lowly, destitute Gutfeld writer barely scraping to survive?
That was unnecessary, Joe. It's funny that you brought that up because I was actually scheduling a meeting to talk about a raise that I was going to have. I mean, it was scheduled, but got other things.
Off the docket, Gutfeld.
Yes.
Off the docket. Got any more jokes? I got a couple other things to cross off here.
Oh, boy. I'm just digging myself a grave here.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Kennedy, Joe brings up the whole point that, like, the guy's living. It's always like, as long as they have the thing that they have, they will tell you to go without something else. It was like defund the police was often pushed by people behind gated communities. I don't think Scott Galloway, who, by the way, again, lives in London, is going to suffer. Also, how does this affect the economy? Like, does it actually affect the GDP? Like, a couple of days of not?
No, absolutely not. And he's banking on the fact that the people who listen to his dumb podcast are economically illiterate, and no one is going to fact check him. That's why fartbags like him love doing podcasts, because there's no interface. There's no interaction with people who actually know more than you do. And, he used to be a respected guy who, appealed to conservatives and libertarians. And now it's like, what have you become?
Yeah.
It's like when people talk about Trump derangement syndrome, it's not just a pejorative. It really is something that consumes once rational people who used to be able to look at both sides of an issue and think about it critically and then, fall on the side of what they thought to be the truth. And it's like, here, the truth be damned. The only truth is Edward Norton should fire his plastic surgeon and never go back, because that eye job is one of the worst I've seen in Hollywood, and there have been quite a few recently.
Yeah, also the the three of them sitting on the sofa was so pathetic.
But the other two are like, oh God, stop talking, because they can hear the movie receipts declining.
Yes.
They can feel people's interests like physically waning, and they're like, oh God, it's like, I need this for my remodel. Stop talking, Edward. You're only making it worse. And he's like, not worse than these, huh?
Tyrus, my problem with this story is I can't take it seriously. If you up with open borders, everything that happens after, it just doesn't, like, when they talk about the people getting hurt, it doesn't resonate with me, because you guys had the opportunity and you blew it, and now you're complaining when we clean up your mess.
I believe the word you're looking for, Greg, is root causes.
Yes, root causes.
That's one of their favorite words, root causes. Lo and behold, Greg, in his little wisdom, discovered what the root cause was of all the violence and what's going on.
Yes.
You opened the border.
Yeah.
Which caused other countries to dump their best and brightest.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do. Like, I got my 6 kids, and when the border opened up, I took the 4 smart ones and you get the out. I'm gonna stay here with the 2 special ones. But here's the thing. Don't feel bad, Greg, because Ed don't believe it either.
Yes.
You know how I know? Because he couldn't talk about it. This is a man who gets paid to speak and play a character, lie. And he said, what happened.
That's right.
What are we talking about?
He was great in like Primal Fear.
Yeah.
Do you remember Primal Fear where he
Yeah.
plays like a mentally deranged guy?
But he couldn't play a passionate liberal.
Yes.
He didn't- if I was the director, cut. Your name's Norton, right? I need some tears. Do you don't remember the line? Like our words don't even count. They don't even have to make sense. So stop doing the give me something. Some emotion.
But he was given such a pass in the 90s for mediocre acting because he went to Yale.
You didn't think he was good in... He was...
up the Hulk, and all you got to do is
he was fine in Primal Fear. He was fine in that movie, but he tried to get rock and roll credibility by banging Courtney Love for a while.
Same here.
I think you just got some critters.
He went through a weird phase. He was really into tall chicks for a while.
Yes, I'd carry a tiny comb wherever I went. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.